Hello and welcome here on Random Rotation. I hope you're all doing well. Today we are building a spaceship in less than 10 minutes. If everything works out fine. Cool? Let's go. I will use two Blender add-ons which you can get via Blendermarket.com if you so desire. They're not too expensive and you're helping out the developer, this guy here. To be more specific, we're talking about the shipwright add-ons. Of course, this will all work just fine without these, but it probably just takes a bit longer. Once the add-ons are installed, you can easily add a shape generator using the Add Mesh menu. And in the outliner you can now see that not only a shape was generated but also a modifier. Of course we could make changes now in Blender's modifier properties, and that would not be wrong, but this is also possible in the add-on itself, and you'll find it down here on the left. In the middle you see the mirror options, and if you click on it you can now choose the axis on which your model should be mirrored, X, Y, or Z. Right at the top, random seed. There is only one value here and by default it's set to 1000. With this slider you randomly create new shapes. You see, with that value alone you can do a lot. I will set mine back to 1000 for now and go on with our next point, extrusions. At the top you can set the amount of extrusions you want to work with. And down here on the right of your monitor you can see what adjusting this value means for your mesh. A value of 5, for example, creates 48 faces. A value of 6 is already 56. But these are not fixed values. Depending on what else you choose to adjust, you may have a little more or less on this counter here. Just keep in mind that you should keep an eye on these numbers from time to time, especially if your computer is not the most powerful machine on the planet. For the length, taper, rotation and slide, a minimum and a maximum value can be set, and at the bottom of the extrusion menu you can decide which axis should be preferred when extruding X, Y or Z. Let me quickly find settings that I like and then we can go on. Alright, fine. I'm happy with that. Next up, bevel. That has to be activated first, otherwise we don't see anything. And if I zoom in a bit closer to one of these edges, you can see better what I'm changing here. Again, the corresponding modifier will be created automatically, which could theoretically be operated from over here. Let me again dial in numbers that I like. Just like this. Okay, subdivision surface is next. Must also be activated. Also creates the modifier again. You know the drill. I don't need it for my scene, so I just deactivate it for now. We already talked about the mirror function, so let's jump directly to the overlapping faces. Here you can simply make sure that no surfaces overlap with only one click, and that's it. And that is my spaceship so far. Transformation options. This is where it really gets exciting. Here you can specify more precisely what your mesh should look like, using the well-known location, rotation, and scale parameters, which you already should be familiar with. And I guess you are, because otherwise I'm pretty sure you wouldn't watch this video for longer than a minute or so. Maybe 2. Okay, what do I want to change here on my mesh? No, the location is fine. I set it back to 0. Don't need to change the rotation. Done. Randomization creates a new mesh without affecting the old one. So please be careful with the number of copies you create. Remember the values down on the right? They tend to explode quickly if you're not careful here. Nonetheless, cool function. Just play around with it a little bit. I don't really want to use it for my mesh, but let me just quickly show you what I mean. See here? 2 new meshes were generated. Okay, back to 1. UV Smart Projection sets presets for, guess what? UV unwrapping. But I think in order not to let this video get too long, I won't talk about that right now and jump directly to the next option down here, other options. Here you can activate smooth shading for your mesh, which looks like this. I don't want that right now, so I just turn it off again. And you can also flip your normals if necessary. And if you're not sure if that's the case, switch into edit mode and check your normals. Once that's all done, we move on with the next add-on, plates and greebles. And now, watch what happens. Ooh, our mesh starts to look like a proper spaceship. Of course, there are a few adjustments to make, and as soon as I start playing around with these numbers, you can clearly see that this adds a lot of detail to the mesh. But explaining every single controller here would be a bit much for this video, I think. Yeah, it's already long enough, and the last thing I want to do is to bore you guys. In one of my upcoming videos, I'd love to texture this spaceship, and it would be cool to let it fly. Don't you think? So, and that's the end of a pretty nerdy episode, I guess. However, I should mention that this whole thing can also be used in conjunction with the animation nodes add-on, and that's where it really gets wild. Anyway, I hope it wasn't too technical and maybe you had a bit of fun watching. Hope to see you next week. If you liked it, bye.